I do want to have you talk about your glass making, because on the last one we got to talk about it, but no one could really see your work. And on top of that, I think describing the process is definitely something that involves, like, you got to be able to see what patterns we're looking at. Definitely. So for people listening to this podcast, you can still listen to it. I'm sure it's still going to be entertaining, but you should probably watch this one. So you got a couple pieces of glass here, and I do want you to kind of like point out the differences in these. Let's start with the one with kind of like the spirals and shit with the green.
This one right here?
Yeah.
So yeah, I made that one for.
Oh, and that won't be in the shot. You might want.
Oh, gotcha. So I made this one for smoking hash. I mean, you could smoke weed out of it too, but so this part is technically called.
You want to hold it up?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
It's called line work. So how they make this is just picture this piece of the tubing, and then they take glass rods, which just looks like a stick. Basically, they come in different sizes: 6 millimeter, 7 millimeter. So they'll fill this tubing, just like the outside lining, with it, and they'll put another tube that's smaller inside of there. So once that's all said and done, you heat everything up, and then you stretch it down, and that gives you, this section to work with.
Sure.
So that's me like pulling a little piece and just doing some twisting, switchbacks, or what they call wigwags. So yeah.
And the wigwag is where it gets kind of like the wave.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. So like this part of it.
Yeah.
Just a wave. And then the way these are done is called doing a termination, where all the lines meet at the end. So you can kind of, do a spiral just straight up, straightness. It kind of looks like a balloon sometimes when you don't twist them at all. But yeah, there's so many things you can do with it. You can do all colors. And what's nice about this is when it's working, all the colors have different densities. So like some colors will heat up faster compared to another one. Like a black is way denser than like some of these whites. So when you're puffing out the work, they might have more black on one side compared than the white. So this is technically going to puff out farther, or easier
because of the density of the color.
Because of how easy. Yeah. So it's like if you think of blowing a bubble with gum, and you have like a chunkier part like on one part of your tongue, and then you blow it, and it kind of like it goes farther because there's more of it, and the other part that's thinner doesn't go as far. It's basically how this is. So that's kind of how I think of it. But
what kind of tool do you use to add more air to it? Like,
so when this is on technically what they call a blow tube, so it's just like a straight piece of glass that's like comes in different sizes. Like 9 millimeter was mostly what I work with, or 12 mil. So that's you're working with this and you're spinning it like that, where it's on the handle, a blow tube. So once you're all done with it, then you have to just take it off and kind of open up this. But that's how you can introduce air, is by having the blow tube and either having like a hose that's like connected to like an adapter to the end of it, or you can just like have the tube and it runs and you just blow into it, or you can move the tube to your mouth and actually blow into it.
Hence why it's called glass blowing.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you literally have to blow air into it, and that's what's going to shape it as it's really hot.
So yeah, if you think of like all of these as like a bubble, like this is just like a little Sherlock. So this was just like a straight tube too. So like I'll heat it up, stretch it down, and then this was like the bubble end of it. So if you think of like the roundedness, I'll heat up just the quarter of it, maybe a little bit more, and then just flatten it, or just let it fall on itself, because that's the only part that's getting hot. So whatever's hot is what is actually going to move.
Got it.
So if it's like a bubble and I'm heating only the front of it, this is going to sink in because of gravity, or if it's going to fall if I have it, you're doing it
depending on
direction.
The angle that you're spinning it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
that's really interesting.
Yeah, and there's all types of things. Like the one I was just holding up, this is done with fuming. So I'll burn actual like silver, like
Sorry. Just like for the shot itself is like pretty much like the mic and up. So
gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotta remember that. So yeah, this is done with silver fuming. So I'll burn a little bit of silver. I got some more stuff over here.
And that will change, for people who don't know, that will change colors as you smoke, because it will build up the residue, and it usually turns like blue or greenish. Like, there's different colors you can get out of it.
Technically, you can get the whole spectrum of the rainbow just by using silver. It's a science project. Get that done, experiment. But yeah, I can achieve really easily the blues in kind of like a whitish color. But yeah, this one's just like a little vessel. And so you could drink out of instead of just smoking out of the things. Make other things other than, I'm wearing a pendant that I'm wearing, or that I make. So,
nice.
there's a lot of things you can do with glass.
Oh yeah. And I know that last time you were talking about like making sculptures. So how much have you dabbled into the things outside of just the just like the pipes, and because pipes are probably like your moneymaker. It's probably easier to sell those,
way easier. There's a lot of smokers out there compared to people buying like figures or other kind of things. I mean, people do buy cups too, but it's more. I mostly sell a lot of pipes. Mm-hmm. So, but the sculpture wise, I've only done like a couple. Like animal sculptures. I've done like a turtle. I've done a seahorse. That was pretty cool. I made like a whole recycler seahorse. It took like 12 hours, but I actually sold that one.
Do you do that straight? 12 hours straight?
It was in pieces. So like I'll start on the prep for it. That takes time. I'll build the pieces and then I'll put it together. That all takes time. So the total was around 12 hours.
Is there a number of times that you can heat something up and reheat it, or like will it get to a point where it's just gonna fucking break?
If you overwork the glass, it can kind of get this thing called devitrification. So it's basically like the molecules inside of the glass just being overworked, and they're just kind of done with it. They're like, you heat me up and stretch me out too much. Mm-hmm. It's not going to work anymore. It's just going to have this like haziness and kind of just basically like a frosty, like it looks like sandblasting, but it's not. Like, so it's kind of ruined. But yeah.
Have you ever had times where you've like just overworked something? And...
when I was learning for sure, because you can heat something up. There's it's working in heat bases. That's what it's called. So like if you think of glass as a liquid, it starts off solid. You heat it up, and then it gets to like a sticky tack kind of texture first, and then it'll get to like a Laffy Taffy kind of texture where if you hold it up, it's gonna flop over. And then when you get to the last one where it's basically like honey, so it's like hot honey that's just like flowing. Mm-hmm. So it's like water, it just flows. So you have to work in those heat ranges just to like achieve what you need to do.
Sure. So what would, since there's different levels to it, what would the first level of heat be used for in the process, and like kind of break down each level of heat on why you would want it to be in that consistency?
So basically, like, let's start from like the honey section. If you wanted something to like just really flow and just get out of, like, maybe you're just tearing off the end of a tube, you heat it really hot, and then you would be able to tear it off way easier than if you were just to like heat it and then try to pull it. You want to just work with the glass instead of actually like forcing it to do what you want it to do. So it's kind of like, so you work with the hottest point of it, that's the most flowing, so you can get it out of there, do what you need to do. The tacky part is more of like you want to stretch it, kind of just like get it to stay. Like if you think of like Laffy Taffy, it's kind of like you can really stretch it and it kind of almost stays. But yes, you do that. And then the sticky tack would be like if you just wanted to like stick something to it, like another, what they call a punty, which is basically just a rod of glass, but you would use it to hold on to it. So you'd have your blow tube, and then you would have the punty, and you'd just be able to work whatever you need. Because sometimes if you're working in the middle, that all gets floppy on you because you're going through the heat bases. So you have to like what they call be the lathe, which is a machine that's it's fixed, so it's always spinning, but you have to be that kind of lathe and just spin it constantly and evenly. So yeah.
How often do you use a lathe versus you are the lathe, like in your process?
I personally like hand spinning this stuff. It's a lot harder on you because it's
physical.
It's heavy. Sometimes you're doing it over and over for 8 hours or whatever, so it does wear on you. We do have a lathe at our studio, but I haven't spent too much time on it just because we have someone that works on there, so he's mostly on it. He doesn't really do the hand spinning stuff, so it's kind of like I do that. I'll maybe like build parts for him on the bench, and then he'll take it to the lathe and put it together. So it's kind of like a team effort, and then we just sell it in our store.